The West Africa and the Sahel region experienced a rather difficult 2017-2018 agricultural season characterized by an early cessation of rains. This resulted in a total cereal production estimated at 67,700,000 tons. However, this production, although up from the 2016-2017 crop year, is well below the population growth, which reinforces the region's dependence on food imports. This situation has created food insecurity for 7,100,000 people, including 6,100,000 in the ECOWAS area from March to May 2018. And if food assistance measures are not taken, the number of people affected could reach 10,600,000 during the lean season, especially in June-August 2018.
Food insecurity is recurrent, and it is not people's fault. It is often linked to natural disasters. Our agriculture is for the moment dependent 90% on the rain, and when it does not rain, it means that we do not harvest. Second, we are facing huge climate change events now. The case was given to Cape Verde, where it was said that during the past rainy season, there was not even a single drop of rain. Even if you used irrigation and there is no rain to allow you to build up the water supply to be able to produce, you can't do anything. So it is not related to public faults, basically. They are effects of natural disasters, they are effects of rainfall differences, and they are the effects of climate change. But we must recognize our share of responsibility too. We do not invest enough in production and agricultural productivity. This must be correct.
Compte tenu de la précarité des pluies, surtout la saison 2017-2018.
The dual problems we have are given the fact of the precariousness of the rainy season, especially for the period 2017-2018. This rainy season was not convincing, and that caused a deficit. As you can see from the discussions, Sahelian cattle made an early move down to the coastal countries and the host countries, and all this poses enormous difficulties, not only in terms of the human population, but also in terms of livestock. I think that we need to find a solution to make sure that the right investments can go into deficit areas, to bring water for irrigation. And if it does not rain in abundance, we have to make sure that this water available through irrigation can help crops complete their cycles. We must avoid to exclusively depending on the rainy season, since it has not been consistent lately.
In order to provide a rapid response to the recurrent crisis, the head of state and government of the ECOWAS took the decision in Yamoussoukro on February 27 and 28, 2013, to set up the Regional Food Security Reserve in a perspective regional food security and sovereignty. It is with the aim of making it operational that Ouagadougou, the Burkinabe capital, hosted on June 6 the meeting of ministers of Ministerial Technical Committee specialized in agriculture of ECOWAS.
La réunion des ministres a décidé.
The meeting of the ministers has decided on the very fast mobilization of the stocks, which are today constituted in 6 countries, so that by the end of June, these stocks will actually be made available to vulnerable populations. To do this, the chair of the management committee, assisted by the ECOWAS Agriculture Commissioners, the WAMU and the executive secretary of CILSS, will constitute an emergency office that will examine the request countries will send to the ECOWAS next week in order to introduce the situation and the responses at the national level, which have been put in place so that the intervention of the reserve, in addition to the first 2 lines that exist in the 2 countries, can be recorded.
To assist affected populations, the reserve has mobilized to date a physical stock of 25,000 tons of cereals purchased from producers in the region on a European Union funding of 56 million euros. Under the medium-term outlook, a 60,000-ton reserve is planned, with a mobilization of funds ranging from $25 to $30 million. But so far, the ECOWAS member states have not paid the funds that were planned for its constitution.
The sovereignty of our community space depends on the ability of the ECOWAS member countries to be able to build this reserve quickly and avoid importing products. I would like to give an example. At the African level, there are $7 billion committed to make rice available. This is huge, and it slows even the economies of our states. This is the same trend that we have at the ECOWAS level. Thus, the fact of constituting this reserve decreases the rate of imports of food products going from an Asian country to the ECOWAS. It also creates a space for small producers to place the products. So it is a question of the economy of our states, a question of sovereignty, and even a question of the political stability of our community space.
To supply the reserve, the Commission aims to obtain supplies from producers in the region. Achieving this goal will require improved farming techniques. Indeed, the agricultural sector in West Africa remains until now exposed to the climate hazards, with a strong dependence on rainfall.
Nous avions connu des pluviométries.
We had rainfall ranging from 1,000 to even over 1,000 millimeters of rain. Nowadays, it is difficult for us to record 400 millimeters of rain. Secondly, the soil on which people have always worked is much impoverished. There is a very rapid degradation of natural resources because the land used is poorly done. We cannot feed the soil properly. There is also the use of fertilizer that is abusive. There is no technology in it, and instead of feeding the soil, it only damages it. Added to this are policies, because the policies we have are not policies that allow the producer to have quality seeds. Land tenure itself is a problem. Water control is not adequate. For some time, the financing of the sector with the structural adjustment program has been dismantled. The advisory support that the producers received is no longer relevant, and with all this, of course, we can only find ourselves with food insecurity.
Il faut ce qu'on appelle des variétés climato-sensibles.
We must have what we call climate-sensitive varieties, whose cycle is part of the shortening cycles of the rainy season. We can also see another approach, which is to master a little more our production environment. We have huge irrigation potentials, and we can bring it into play. We have water conservation techniques that allow us not to depend entirely on the rain, and this is also an approach to follow. And I totally agree with you. The short-cycle varieties that can produce very quickly in the short cycle of the season are an option not to be overlooked, and there are actually some.
Beyond climate change, food and nutritional vulnerability in West Africa is also explained by the presence of predatory insects that often threaten production. Added to this is the insecurity posed by terrorist networks in a number of countries in the sub-region.
Recently, Nigeria participated in the second external evaluation on food crisis prevention, which is supported by SAILS and RPC project. The report is ready, which shows that Nigeria is doing well. One of the initiatives we have as a response to our food crisis is the presidential initiative on Northeast. Everybody is aware about this Boko Haram insurgents. For that reason, Mr. President established a body that will coordinate the issue of food crisis in that region, which we called Presidential Initiative on Northeast, which is supporting the mandate of the National Emergency Management Agency to address food crisis in areas where we have some insecurity, such as the Northeast and the militant oil-producing state in Nigeria.
Aujourd'hui, la production agricole peut augmenter, mais il faut savoir que la production
Today, agricultural production can increase, but you must know that population growth is much stronger than agricultural growth today. In Mali, for example, this year production has increased by about 1.7%, while the population growth rate is 2.3%. So you see there is an imbalance between population growth and agricultural growth. It means that we have to produce more and especially control the water.
Donc ça veut dire que nous devons beaucoup produire davantage et maîtriser surtout l'eau.
The Regional Food Security Reserve is the third line of defense to prevent and manage food crises. It is complementary to local stocks and national food security stocks held by states. In response to these crises, they have also developed capacities in the development of national food insecurity response plans.
Aujourd'hui, au Burkina Faso, nous avons
Today in Burkina Faso, we have made the commitment to provide at least 95,000 tons of cereals across the country through sales at subsidized prices and also around 250 special shops spread in our country. We have mobilized a number of resources with technical and financial partners for the free distribution of cereals, for financial support with unconditional cash, and also with improved seeds, with inputs for the production of the dry season and also for the production of the season that starts now.
Cabo Verde
is not a producing country. Its domestic production covers only 10% of the country's needs. So it is a structurally deficit country and dependent on imports. The country has a food security policy with a financial reserve of 3 months. This reserve is provided by the private sector, but the country has also made a plan to respond to the crisis. Much of the implementation and funding of the contingency plan, which Cabo Verde has developed for this year, has been supported by some partners. Burkina Faso has been designated to host the headquarters of the network of public structures in charge of managing national food security stocks. This network brings together 17 states, including the 15 ECOWAS member countries, in addition to Mauritania and Chad.